So, hello again, everyone. My name is Brianna Jones with the Leadership Institute, and I am truly excited to moderate today's webinar with you all. Over the next hour, we will be having an interactive webinar. So, we will use the chat feature. I will pause the speaker throughout to, refer to any comments or questions that may have been entered into the chat. Feel free to send those questions and comments to me directly if you don't feel comfortable putting it into the general chat. And to tell you a little bit about today's facilitator, Brian Fitzpatrick is a leadership consultant, published author, coach, and trainer. And Brian has been affiliated with the Leadership Institute since 2019, and he brings over 25 years of experience in coaching and in training to today's webinar. So please help me welcome Brian in the chat. And with that, Brian, you now have the floor.
All right. Good morning. Good morning, leaders. Good morning, leaders. I was going back and forth on whether or not I was going to stand up or sit down this morning because they have this fancy table in the training room where I can actually, I'm pretty tall, so I can let it up and I can actually stand up. But I said, if I do that, man, we gonna wreck the internet. So let me sit down and try to be a little bit more demure and keep myself composed and calm this morning, because y'all, I'm telling y'all, I'm excited about being with you all this morning and to talk about something that actually prompted me to write a book. So all of the content that you're going to hear today, I put in a workbook, a short, small workbook for leaders last summer, right? And it has just turned into something that I've just been able to, really speak into leaders, because y'all, I have been there. I have been there. I started to really reflect on my own career and just my life. And the words "do not quit" just kept resonating with me. And so over the course of time, all of these things just started to really bubble up. And I decided, man, this is too good. We got to put this in something so that leaders can have it, because I understand that leadership can be difficult. It is challenging. It is a whole lot of things. But I know that those words, that when they were spoken to me many, many, many years ago, kept me in the game. And so we're going to talk about it this morning. I love coming to the Disruptive Leadership series because we get to do stuff like this. We get to talk about things that you're not going to hear in a regular podcast. We get to talk about stuff that sometimes you're not going to read in a book. You're not going to see it in a training. We get to talk about those things that are on, kind of on the cutting edge, that leaders are really feeling, that they're thinking, but nobody wants to bring it up. And so nobody wants to talk about quitting, because we are groomed, we are told from the time that we come to this world, you are great, you are smart, you are a winner, you are all of these things. But if we are being honest as professionals and as people this morning in this group, this is a safe space, y'all. We just gonna have some conversation. But if we being honest, all of us have hit that point where we wanted to say, you know what, y'all got it, I quit. Right? And some of us may have even made the decision. Maybe it was not in your career, but maybe it was something else, because we often start things in life. We start well, right? We start things in life, and then stuff starts to happen. We start to be challenged. We start to get pushed back. It starts to be a little bit more difficult than what we thought. And we just walk away. And so that's what we want to do this morning. We just want to have some conversation, right? We got about an hour. We got a lot we're going to go through, but at the very end, I'm going to tell you how you can go and you can actually download the PDF of the book, and it is a coaching session in a book. And so if you want to go deeper than what we are going to have time for this morning, I'm going to encourage you, and I'm going to show you how you can access that resource. I got it put on my website a couple of days ago just for y'all because I knew this was coming up. So with that being said, I'm gonna share my screen and let's get down to business. Let's go. All right. Let's see. Let me get this. Okay. All right, here we go. So I want to lead off with some words of encouragement this morning because I don't know what prompted everybody to register for this session, but this was something that has really been on my mind since early this morning. It's an excerpt from a quote. We don't know who wrote it, but it says, "We are not of those who shrink back. We are not of those who cave in. We are not built out of stuff where we naturally give up on things. That is not how we are created. You know, we are created out of things and experiences and life and all of this stuff, our education and all of these things make us into the people that we are. But I want you to think about it. If we look at our lives and all of the things that we've experienced, it is sometimes those tough times, those challenging moments that help to give us that stick-to-itness, that help give us that toughness. And so I just want to encourage somebody this morning just to let you know and remind you, you're not made out of stuff that quits. And so I want to stir something up in you this morning where you get back in the game. If you disconnected or you disengaged in some area of your life, where you're willing to take that step back, where you're willing to look at it critically, you're willing to problem solve, you're willing to come up with solutions and then take action. That's what we're trying to do today. But I got to start off by telling y'all, we are not of those that shrink back. That is not who we are. We're not built like that, right? We are people that know how to get things done and press our way through things when challenges come. But the reality is, it gets heavy. It gets exhausting. It gets draining. It gets all of those things. I understand. I'm gonna take y'all back to about 2010 in my career. I was at what I believe was the height of my working career, as far as the amount of money that I made, the position that I held. I had all of these direct reports. It was everything that I thought that I wanted out of my career. My boss and I started to have some issues. We started to have a lot of strife between us. So much so, and it went on for so long, that I literally went to Walmart one day on my way to work. I got a packing box. I just bought one. I walked into the office. I didn't say anything to anyone. I walked in, I closed the door, and I began to take everything off the walls. I began to go through my closet. Y'all, I had a bathroom in my office. I began to go through there and I began to fill this box because I had made up my mind that day was going to be the day that I was going to quit. About 15 minutes into this, my EA comes in, she knocks on the door, and Tiffany walks in and she sees this box on my desk full of all of my things, and I'm steadily finding more things and I'm filling this box up. And she looks at me and says, "What are you doing?" And I said, "I'm about to quit." She did something that was pretty interesting. She was familiar with one of my mentors. I talk about it in the book a little bit in the beginning. He and I had a very interesting relationship, and he was my mentor long before that, probably the late 90s, until he passed away last year. And she called him and said, "Hey, I don't know what's going on, but I need you to need you to reach out. I kept filling this box up. I was thinking of all of the things that had gone wrong and how I felt like I was wronged and all of the things that this person had done. And the phone rings, and he and I ended up having a conversation, and we landed on these 3 words: do not quit. Over the course of time, over the next several hours, I know we like to say in 2025, people talk us off the ledge, right? He managed to talk me off the ledge. I hung in there. I stuck with it. And I'm glad I did, because some things happened that shifted that relationship. I didn't know that that was going to happen, but in that moment, in my feelings, in my emotions, I had made up my mind that day that me and my little box, that we were walking out, we were going to quit. I don't know where you are in life or your career, but I just want to remind you of these words this morning before we get into the heart of our discussion. We are not of those that shrink back. It's not how we build. You can make it. You will make it. But in order to make it, you have to not quit. So let's talk about it. Let's go. Is there anybody, let's talk in the chat. Is there anybody that can identify with my man here? Anybody ever felt like this, either in life or work? He got a lot going on. He got a whole bucket, full of cleaning supplies. He's got spray bottles. He's got like the little dusters. He got all of this stuff. He got like a little broom in there. He's got his gloves on. And maybe he's been at it for a long time. I know, y'all, that leadership can feel like this. It can feel like we have to, on a daily basis, pull out all of these small tools to do all of these tasks. And let's be honest, it can be exhausting. Now, when I say leadership, I'm not just talking about in your work, in your 9 to 5. I'm talking about what you do in everyday life. So I'm talking about both life and business. Life can feel like this, right? It can feel like we're always running around putting out fires, that we always have things going on. And no matter, how many tools or how many supplies that we think we have at our disposal, it seems like we always need to add something else to the bucket. We always need to add something else to help us clean up a mess. Oh, we got to talk about that. Because doesn't it feel like in leadership sometimes we always cleaning up a mess? It's some of those messes, if we're being honest, again, if we're gonna be honest, some of those messes sometimes, y'all, can be of our own doing. It can be because we procrastinated, we waited till the last minute, but most of the time in leadership, they are not of our own doing. We are actually cleaning up a mess that we didn't even help to create. There is nothing more frustrating than having to clean up behind somebody else. I'm just saying. I don't know about you, but it's one of the things that I do not enjoy in this life. And it can make you feel like my man right here. You just want to find a couch, you just want to stretch out, and you just need to take a nap. Maybe for you, it's sitting in your office and you have to turn the lights off. You have to put your earbuds in. Maybe you have to take a stroll around your office. Maybe you need to walk outside, whatever it might be. But here's what I need you to know about what you're looking at. Number one, y'all, leadership is hard. When we decide to step into a leadership role, we are deciding and we are accepting the challenge and the call to accept a set of responsibilities, that are connected to other people, but they cause us to have to stretch. They cause us to have to learn new things. They cause us to have to pivot and shift and strategize and fulfill all these different roles. Oh, I know how we say it in 2025. I wear a lot of different hats. That's leadership. But that's also leadership in life. In life, we wear a lot of different hats. I also know that the temptation to quit is real. I often talk about how at gyms at the beginning of the year, everybody starts their New Year's resolution. Y'all know what we say, new year, new me, right? I'm gonna get healthier this year. I'm gonna join a gym. And if you are a gym goer, then you know in January, you usually see an influx of people that you don't see on a regular basis because gyms become this subculture, this small community. You see the same people. Some of them you meet, some people you may even become friends with, y'all, because y'all work out at the same time, and then you find out you have things in common, and so on and so forth. And it just becomes this whole thing. It becomes a part of your support system. And all of a sudden in January, you have all these strangers that start to invade the space. And then a strange thing happens about March, leading into April, after the pollen starts to fall. That's just for all you that's in Georgia. We deal with pollen around here. It starts to get a little thinner, and the faces become more familiar, and it looks like what it was toward the end of the previous year. Because the temptation to quit is real. I had a goal in mind. I was focused on what I wanted to do, but something started to happen. Something started to happen that pushed me into a place where I said, you know what? I don't know if I really want this bad enough. Anybody ever felt that? I don't know if I really want this. I thought I wanted it. That's where I was in my career. I thought I wanted everything that I had gotten until I sat in the seat. So here's something I want you to put in your notes. When it comes to something that we're going to talk about later, I'm going to go ahead and give it to you now. Later on, we're going to talk about starting over. Here's what I want you to know. You're never going to know until you sit in the seat. I don't know who that one's for, but I'm going to put that out there now. You're never going to know. So if you're on the verge of trying, applying, going back to school, I don't know what it is. You're never going to know until you sit in the seat. All right. So our image, our supermodel on the previous slide, y'all, this is mental fatigue. This is what it looks like. And so when we get to work, it can start to look like this. Now we're covered up in computers and papers and calculators and all these things. Has anybody ever felt like this? Mental fatigue, y'all, it will compromise, the persistence that we have. And it actually interferes with our ability to be able to self-regulate when it comes to our feelings and our emotions of work, of life, of what we're doing with. And what begins to happen is we start to reduce the value that we put on the task. So in the beginning, it is really, really important. And now because of all of these things and because of this fatigue that now we're experiencing, yeah, it's just not that important anymore. I just don't know anymore. I don't know if I want this the way that I thought I did. When leaders feel disconnected in the workplace or in life, it is often because they are disconnected from purpose. Our motivation begins to deteriorate. Our motivation begins to wane. And if we have not put in place a set of disciplined behaviors, then we get a little bit closer to this place that we call quitting. It becomes an option that we put on the table, and we often don't know that we've done it. And the crazy thing is, our performance will still be high. We'll still be chugging along and plugging away at it. it'll still be high. All the while on the inside, there's a disconnect. It's kind of like trying to work on your computer and you on Wi-Fi and that signal goes out. It's frustrating, right? But you continue to plug away. It's how we do it. But I don't want you as leaders to ever again after today feel like you just have to continue to plug away. I want to show you something and I want to ask you a question. I want you to talk to me in the chat. When you look at this picture, tell me what you see. Tell me what you see.
We have strength coming in the comments, Brian. New growth.
Okay.
Hope.
Okay.
Plant growing in stones is hardships, in hardships.
Uh-huh.
Someone who's trying, resilience, a tiny sprout. New season.
I like that. You talking my kind of language now. I like that. Yeah. What else? What else y'all see? Y'all are on the right track. Hard environment. Doesn't stop growth. Survival. Obstacles. Breakthrough. Woo! I like this. Everything that y'all said is correct. Y'all picked up on everything that I wanted y'all to see in this image. But now I need to overlay something for you and I need to ask you a question. All of this stuff that you said, all of this stuff that you said about breakthrough and survival and a new season and resilience and all of that, plants growing in hardship, hope, new growth, strength. I got to put something in your lap this morning. When you feel like this, when your environment is like this, when it seems like the only green thing that's in a place is you, and all you can see around you is obstacles and challenges. Are you willing to be all these things and exhibit all these things you just said so that you can get to the breakthrough? Are you willing to face up to the obstacles? Are you willing to go into a mode where you say, you know what, I'm gonna get through this? Somebody said the word resilience, and I'm glad y'all threw that out there, because resilience is something that nowadays, I think we have to work at it a little bit more. I think when I was growing up in the 70s, I grew up in the latchkey kid generation, where we were given keys to houses when we were 5, 6, 7 years old. And we were left to navigate life and do so well. Don't let nobody in my house. Don't turn my stove on. Don't answer my phone. All of this stuff. We were given this large amount of responsibility. And so I think that the unintended reality of that was that we built a resilience just by having to deal with stuff at an age that for a lot of us was probably way, way too soon, right? And I think now, because of all of the modern conveniences we have, resilience is something that we have to talk about. It's something, especially as leaders, we have to keep at the forefront, because leadership is difficult. It is challenging. It is all of those things. So when we talk about resilience, this is what I mean. Resilience is the disciplined decision to keep moving forward. Notice what I said. It is the disciplined decision. It is not a decision out of emotion. It is not a decision that you're going to wake up in the morning and go get a box from Walmart like I did, and you just going to go and pack up your office and you just telling them people you wasn't coming back and all of this. That was not a disciplined decision. I made that decision in the moment riding in my car because I felt some kind of way about what was going on, about all the challenges. I had a human moment. This is why, as leaders, we have to be able to, and we have to be willing to share our humanness with the people that we lead. Because if we don't, then what's going to happen is we're going to set up a false perception for people that now when we have a human moment, now they're looking at us different because we portrayed ourselves as superhuman. We marched around like a robot, like we have it all together all the time and we have all the answers, when in reality, we're human. I need y'all to know that every superhero is still human. That's for free. All right. So disciplined decision-making to keep moving forward through pressure, through pain, through uncertainty, but we have to choose to persevere. Resilience begins with a choice. Resisting the urge to quit has to begin with a choice. And I want to talk about some common challenges, some things that push us to that place where we want to say, you know what? I'm waving the white flag. Y'all got it. I want you to find yourself in these, in life and in business. I'm going to share a few things with you over the next few minutes that hopefully are going to help you strategize what to do next. And if you see yourself in some or all of these, I'm going to leave you with some keys, with some coaching tips that are going to help you be able to push through. All right? Y'all ready? Brace yourself. Telling y'all in advance, I ain't messing with nobody. I'm just saying what I'm saying. If I come down your street, just keep looking at your screen. Nobody's going to know I'm talking about you. All right? All right, let's get in here. If we're going to build staying power, there are 10 challenges that we must recognize and overcome. Let's look at them. Challenge number 1, managing expectations. Disappointment, if you, and I think it was last year, Bree, where we did Great Expectations. This was one of the ones from Great Expectations. Disappointment is the fruit of unmanaged, unmet, and unrealistic expectations. As leaders, we get disappointed in people. We get disappointed in the way that things went, that budgets weren't approved. We get disappointed in all of those things, but it was because, if we look at it, we did not manage our expectations, right? And as leaders, we face pressure meeting both other people's expectations and our own. So unrealistic expectations can creep in and they lead to us being frustrated and burned out. We have to manage our expectations. Here's your staying PowerPoint. Separate your identity from those external expectations. So often we get our identity from what we do. I want you to think about conversations when we're in mixed companies or we're at social events. We meet people that we haven't met before, right? And we introduce ourselves. And so we exchange names and all of this stuff. Probably in the first 5 to 7 minutes of that conversation, somebody's going to start talking about what they do because we find our identity in it. The danger in that is when you are not doing that anymore, who are you? I deal with so many leaders that are at the end of their career and they're approaching retirement, or they already know, this is, I'm retiring from here. I'm going to do something else, but, I don't really know, what that is. And when we really dig into it, what they're really struggling with is identity. They're struggling with trying to figure out who they are. And so if we don't disconnect our identity from all of these expectations, from all of these pleasing people, from all of these things, if we don't disconnect our identity and have a solid understanding of who we are, what our values are, who is the reality, what is the reality of who I am as a human being, then the expectations of others begins to become who we are. And we find ourselves going through life and going through our career, just going from one task to the next, to the next, to the next. We do not ever feel a sense that it's enough. We don't ever feel a sense that we can fail, that we can have a human moment. So we have to separate that identity from those external expectations. That's the first thing. Challenge number 2. Let's talk about these insane schedules. I'm gonna pause for just a second because I want everybody on this call to sit with that. And I want you to consider your calendar. I want you to consider all of the things that you have already committed to, and it's only March. It's not even April yet. I want you to consider all your obligations, whether that be family, whether that be volunteer organizations, whether that be doing things with your children, whether that's your work, whether you own a business, whatever that is. I want you to think about your schedule in total, right? An overloaded schedule can quickly lead you to stress and decreased productivity. Former President Dwight D. Eisenhower said it like this. He said, plans are worthless, but planning is everything. Plans are worthless, but planning is everything. We fill our schedules up with all of this stuff. We commit to this. We are quick to say yes, and we don't even consult our calendar. But yet we turn around and say that our calendar is what we use to guide what we do. But how many people here have ever committed to something and then gone back and looked at your calendar after the fact and said, uh-oh, I didn't know, or I forgot. Or maybe you're the person, I got you. Maybe you're the person that thinks you can keep it all in your head, right? Y'all quiet on this Zoom. Maybe you the person that thinks I can just remember, I got a mind like a steel trap. I can keep it all right here. Or maybe you the person that's got 2 or 3 calendars going on. You got one on your phone, you got one on your computer, you got one that you write in, you got sticky notes flying everywhere. Insane schedules. That's what it begins to look like. So I want to encourage you to try this technique. It's called time blocking. It's called time blocking. It will help you manage your workload and your calendar more efficiently, because what you're going to do is start to not just put things on your calendar, but consider how long do these things really take. And so don't just put the event on your calendar, but block out the amount of time. So if it's going to take, if it's a report that you need to work on, right? And you've done this report every month. So guess what? You have a good idea of how long this report is going to take. You know, it usually takes you about 4 or 5 hours to put this report together. So if you don't have 4 or 5 hours on one day to just sit down and do it, then maybe you need to schedule on your calendar, okay, I need an hour and a half on Monday, I need an hour on Tuesday, and then I need 30 minutes on Thursday, and I can wrap all of this up, right? Time blocking. But I'm not just going to put that I need to do it. That's not enough. You gotta go deeper. You got to start to consider how long do these things take. People that know me know I'm quick to tell people I am not coming somewhere. People invite me to places and I tell them up front, yeah, no, I'm not. Yeah, I'm not coming. I'm going to be where I be. And when I'm not going to be there. That is my motto, right? But it's because I have in my head this technique going, kind of like as a background function. I started doing this years ago, y'all, and it changed the game for me, because this was the one that almost sent me out with my little brown Walmart box. It was that insane schedule. I had so many meetings, y'all, and things. It was crazy. And I was just like, it's enough. I can't keep going. And somebody taught me to do this. Don't just put things on your calendar. Spend some time to think about how long does it take, right? And once I started doing that, it changed everything for me. And I suddenly found the ability to say no to things because I knew I didn't have the time. I hope that makes sense. Number 3, all or nothing thinking. is one of the challenges, because when we're in leadership, again, whether that's in life or in business, we can think, if I can't have all of it, then what am I gonna do, right? If it can't be this way, then I'm just not gonna do anything. But not doing anything doesn't get me to an outcome. It doesn't get me to a result. And so what needs to happen and where we need to shift is understanding that small, consistent effort is what leads to results over time. I tell people all the time, anybody can do anything once. Anybody can do anything once. But it is that consistent effort that proves that you're proficient, that proves that you have mastered something. It is doing things over and over and over again. And as leaders, what can start to happen is we get into this place of thinking we got to have all of it right now. And that's just not the case. I know that you have a lot of things that you're responsible for. Leaders do. It's a part of leadership. But having all those responsibilities, we have to be able to manage them, and we have to know that there are smaller steps that lead us to the results that we want to get, right? None of us can add time to the day. None of us can. We are not suddenly going to wake up in the morning and have 27-hour days. We're only going to have 24 hours. You can't stay up all the time. You got to sleep and eat at some point. But we live our lives like we can get it all done. And somehow, if we don't get it all done, we fail. And I just got to tell y'all this morning, that is not true. Because it will lead you to a place where you feel like and you don't acknowledge or recognize the progress that you are making, because you've now set these unrealistic standards for yourself. Expectation. So here's your stand power. You got to replace those absolutes. Stop with these always and nevers. I always do this. I always. When's the last time that you asked yourself, why do you always? Is there not anybody else that can? Have you trained somebody else to do? Right? Or maybe you sometimes the leader on the other end of the spectrum where you're the never, right? Well, I don't ever do that. It's not in my job description. But yet it's not something that's being done at a level of excellence that's satisfactory. You got to be flexible is what I'm telling you. So try replacing those absolutes. You want to build some staying power, and this is one that you challenge with, that all or nothing thinking. Look at where you're setting these absolutes in place. Maybe you're being too rigid. Where is it that you might need to be a little bit more flexible? Number 4, I love this one. Overestimating capacity. As leaders, y'all, listen, in life and business, we often overestimate how much we can get done. The example that I like to use, living in Columbus, Georgia, we always see people speeding around the city all the time. I'm convinced that it is because we believe Columbus is the size that it is, we can get everywhere we need to go in 15 minutes. And that is just not the fact. It's just not true. And what I realized is, y'all, the saying is true that you can't pour from an empty cup, but you also can't pour from a full one. So when you have a cup that is filled to the rim to its capacity, what happens when you try to pour some of that into something else? This picture happens. It starts to spill. So same result, right? We overestimate how much we can accomplish, how much time we have, how much resources we got. We overestimate, right? And it's because we, in some cases, just are not being realistic. We believe that we have more than we actually do, right? And so time is a good one to think about. So I want you to simply do this. I want you to track how long it takes for you to actually do things, right? Track how long tasks actually take. So before we talked about time blocking, right? So we talked about being intentional about, setting aside a specific amount of time for these things that we regularly do. Now I'm gonna challenge you. I'm gonna challenge you to go a little bit deeper than that. And now I want you to look at, after you've done it, did it really take that long? Does it really take me 3 hours to do this? No, it really doesn't. It really only takes me an hour and a half. You just put an hour and a half back into your schedule. By an hour and a half, your schedule just became a little less insane. Small wins, y'all. We have to look for the small wins. That's that all or nothing thinking. Because we start to discount the small things. We start to discount the small things. Number 5. We often confuse can and should. We can do a lot of things, but it does not mean that we should. We can commit to a lot of things. We can say yes to a lot of things, but it doesn't mean that we should. The task or the projects that we undertake, that we say yes to, they should always connect in a work environment to whatever the vision is for the work that you're doing. So if you happen to be a people leader, whatever that vision is for your team, if these are things that you can't clearly articulate, this is how this will help us do this and accomplish this end goal, then I need you to take a step back and just simply ask yourself, should we be doing it? Because it's a high likelihood that you should not. Or it may not be the time for it. Or maybe somebody else would be better suited to do it. You have the resources, you have the people, you have the manpower, you have all of those things. So you can, but should you? We can apply the same thought process to our life. There's a lot of things that we can do. We can go back to school and get another degree, but should we? Does it connect to the vision that you have? And if you're struggling trying to figure out whether or not it does, let me challenge you and say, maybe you need to go back and make sure that vision is a little bit more clear. Maybe you need a little bit more clarity around what it is that you're doing. So what needs to happen is, in reality, is we have to know the difference between responsibility and obligation. They are not the same thing. We have to know the difference between responsibility and obligation. It's just that simple. But confusing can and should will have you in a place like I was, where I thought I had to be all things to all people all the time. And it was overwhelming. I know we know that word. That's a good 2025 word right there. And it was overwhelming. All right, Bree, you want to pause or you want me to keep going? How you want me to do it? We got about 15 minutes.
Keep going, Brian. We don't have any questions in the chat. If you all get a moment to read Brad's comment when it came to the insane schedules, check it out in the chat. But Brian, go ahead.
Okay, all right, let's do it. Number 6. Sometimes we want to quit, y'all, because we're afraid to fail. Fear of failure is a big deal. It's a huge roadblock. When we're afraid to fail, it stifles our creativity, right? But what if, I'm just saying, what if we started to look at failure as an opportunity? What if we started to look at failure? I think John Maxwell is the one that said about failure, if you're gonna fail, then fail forward. Fail making progress. Fail trying. Fail putting in your best effort. Don't fail holding back. Don't fail because you were being complacent, because you were afraid to try. Don't let that be the reason that you fail. And if you're going to fail going forward, right? The fear of failure is a thing. We all deal with it. And so what I want you to do is start to focus on action over outcomes, because y'all, we learn by doing, right? We learn by doing. I want you to think about, kids that play with Legos. You can put them on the floor, and you can just give them a bunch of blocks and everything, and you don't have to tell them what to make, right? But it's trial and error for them. If it doesn't look the way that they envisioned it in their head, they're very quick to take it all apart and just simply start over again. But I think the older that children get, is that fear of failure, it starts to become ingrained in them, right? Many of us, and especially people that have children, y'all know there was a point probably in your child's upbringing, they were fearless. You were getting them down off of tables, off of chairs. I remember I had a cousin that somehow managed to get up on top of the refrigerator. I don't even know how that boy got up there. And they were they're daring. And so they're not afraid of failure. They don't understand consequences. They don't understand you can hurt yourself and all of those things. But my point is that they are not afraid to try. The older we get, that somehow, because of education, because of upbringing and experiences, we start to be a little bit more reserved and conservative in our efforts. But I want to encourage you this morning, if the fear of failure is something that has stifled you and holds you back, I just want you to focus in on the action. Don't worry about the outcome. Focus in on the action. If you have the action step, if you know very clearly what it is that you need to do, focus on that, because you're going to learn as you go. And if it's not right, guess what? We erase the board and we do it again. Now that I'm sitting here thinking about it, the picture that I should have used was a picture of an Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know if y'all remember that. I used to love mine, because at the end, if I didn't like what I made, I would just shake it up and I would just start over again. And sometimes, y'all, as leaders, we have to shake things up. In our life, we need to shake things up. But then there's the fear of success. I know this sounds crazy, but there are some people that are afraid to succeed because success comes with responsibility. Success means you can't hide anymore. So that talent, that skill, that gifting that you had that didn't nobody else know you had, and now all of a sudden you've done something, and now it's front and center and it's out there and people know it, and now you shrink back. How many of us have ever said, I do my best work like in the background? Some people do. Some people, they have that gift of administration. They got that kind of thing going on. But it might be some of us that are simply afraid to succeed, because with that success comes acknowledgement. And it can be just as paralyzing as the fear of failure. And it comes from this pressure that we put on ourselves to maintain high performance. It's that all or nothing thinking, y'all. I hope y'all are seeing how all of these are interconnected, right? Because we think, now that I've been successful, I got to be successful at everything. Y'all, that's not even possible. Let me tell you, there's not a leadership book anywhere that's going to tell you that you have to be perfect and successful at everything, that you always have to have all the answers and you have to do everything right. It doesn't exist, because we're human. We have flaws. We have challenges. I've made many a bad call. I made bad hires. And then I sat back and thought, what was I thinking? Like, I knew better than this, right? But now I got to deal with the consequences downrange. But we put this pressure on ourselves to maintain this high level all the time. So this is what I want you to do. I want you to identify some of the specifics about success that give you a little bit of, I'm not going to say anxiety, I'm just going to say pause, that they challenge you a little bit. Maybe it's just the pressure of people knowing that I can do a certain thing. Maybe that's it. Maybe now, well, now people are going to be expecting me to always, do that. Maybe that's what it is. Put a name to it. But now that you know what it is, I'm going to challenge you to go back and put actions in place that's going to help you navigate through that. Because remember, we learn by doing. So if the fear of failure, if we got to continue to do and we have to focus on actions and not outcomes, I'd be willing to bet that the fear of success is going to work the same way. Focus on action. Don't worry about the end result. Be confident in who you are. Be confident in what it is that you do. All right. Number 8. I have triggers. Number 8. Every time I have looked at this presentation over the last couple of weeks and I saw that cat, I just giggled. Because my guy is looking like, I know you lying. And we think about triggers, we think about emotional, mental, all of these things, but they also exist. There's a such thing as leadership triggers, because leadership can trigger emotional reactions. They can remind us, certain things can remind us of past conflicts, times of change, times of uncertainty, maybe criticisms, feedbacks, failures that we've had, pressure, stress. It can remind us being mistreated, when certain situations. Here's what I know though. If we don't deal with whatever our triggers are around leadership and being leaders, what'll happen is that we will then inadvertently pass those on to the people that we lead. Let me give you an example. So I want you to think about a person that is under-acknowledged, right? They're under-acknowledged in their space. They're not really recognized, any of those things. They've been faithful. They've done a good job, all of this, but they don't recognize. Now, all of a sudden, they shift and they move to company B. So they're working for company A. Now they go over here. They're working for company B. It's a promotion for them, and now they have a team. But now they've experienced all these years of being underappreciated, undervalued, and so on and so forth. If they do not deal with the emotions around that, what's going to happen is now they can find themselves withholding that same appreciation from the people that they're now leading, right? So it's important for us to acknowledge that we have a past. We have things that we've experienced that have not been so good when it comes to leadership, and we've been led our whole life. So from the day that we came into this world until this day, before we ever supervise an employee, we've been led, right? And so all of these things go into it. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to find a mentor. If you do not have one, I want you to find a mentor. Seek wise counsel, because mentorship will always help you with perspectives. Because what will happen is if you don't deal with this, then every time you see something that's similar, you're going to make an assessment and a judgment, and you're going to think you're dealing with the same thing and the same person, and you're not. And it can very easily happen because leadership triggers are emotional reactions, right? But they can cause us to become stuck. They can cause us, and one of the best ways to get unstuck is mentorship. Having people that don't necessarily do the same thing that you do, but they have a level of wisdom where they can challenge you, and they can tell you, no, you're wrong. That was a horrible reaction. You should have never said that. And you not be mad at them when they do it. So your mentor can't be the person that you're going to fall out and stop speaking to the first time that they say something you don't like. They can't be your mentor. I'm just saying. That person can't be your mentor. But find that person that you value them. You value their expertise, their experience, right? You value them as a person. their values and your values align, and seek out that perspective. Number 9, starting over. Starting over can be hard, y'all, because sometimes we miss the mark. We have to go through the embarrassment of starting over. We have to go through, all of the anxiousness that comes along with starting over, and it can seem overwhelming. I get it. I understand. But it's an opportunity also to change and learn and grow and continue to go higher, right? So let's use having to start over as a chance to realign visions, goals. Sometimes people quit. They give up on leadership. I know several people, and I was one of them, that said, I don't ever want to lead a team again. I just want to be an individual contributor. And when I got in that role, y'all, I wasn't happy, because I still had value that I could add to people, right? When it comes to starting over, this is what I want you to do. I want you to maintain the mindset of a learner, because every restart, every reset, y'all, it's an opportunity. Don't be afraid to start over if you need to. And then last, but certainly not least, this is one that there is actually a separate workshop that I do, because sometimes we quit because we simply not motivated anymore. It's not as important as it was. Motivation can wane over time, y'all. It does. So we need those disciplined behaviors in place to help us sustain progress. We have to develop habits and routines that keep us going, because we're not going to always want to. It's some of us that got out of bed this morning, that got ourselves together, and we got out the house, and we pulled up in the parking lot of our workplace, and we looked around, and maybe we thought, has anybody seen me yet? Do I still have time to call them and tell them I'm not coming? And I can go back home, because we weren't really motivated. But discipline in those times where we're not as motivated, those disciplined habits and behaviors, those are the things that keep us going. So we got to replace feelings-based action, because motivation, yeah, that can be based in feelings sometimes. And we have to bring in commitment-based actions. Commitment-based actions are going to be things like, I got people on my team that's depending on me to do my part so that they can do their part, right? So I'm gonna discipline myself. I'm gonna wrangle my schedule. I'm gonna work out, all of these things so that I can fulfill that commitment. So what are those commitment-based actions that we need to take? How does that look for us? Each one of us goes through some, if not all of these. And I just want to challenge you today. And I've said that word a lot, challenge, because it is a challenge. Leadership is hard, y'all. It is. But it is one of the most rewarding things that you can ever do in life, because it gives you the opportunity to help somebody else reach their full potential. I think it's an endeavor worth taking. I think it's a challenge worth accepting. But we have to make up our mind every day that we're going to do it. So if you want to take the challenge, here's what I want you to do. I want you to go to my website. It's www.livej330.com. Right on the homepage, scroll down to the bottom, and you're going to see free resources. Click that link and do not quit is in a PDF version just for y'all to download. You can have all of my notes and coaching tips and all of that stuff is in there. Work yourself through the activity. If you need to work through all 10, work through all 10. If you only need to work through one of them, work through one of them. But I want it to be something that'll help you, because I need you not to quit, because nothing gets better, nothing improves, nothing changes without good leadership. So we need you. Last thing, we've got our, let me go back over. We've got our QR code, our survey for today. If you will just scan it, it will take you to a place where you can give some feedback. I appreciate you all. I know it was a lot of content in a pretty short period of time, but go get that guide. It will help you. All right, Bree, back to you.
Thank you so much, Brian. This was very impactful for myself. So I hope that everyone else have a few challenges to work through. For me, my challenge will be number 5 and number 7. Those are going to be my goals to accomplish and overcome those challenges. And so our next webinar will be next month, and it is all focused on small businesses. So please feel free to invite your favorite entrepreneur to that session. It comes at the right timing because Small Business Month is in May. So please have someone, invite someone to that session. And if you would like a copy of today's presentation and a link to the recording, please go ahead and drop your email addresses in the chat, and I will send a follow-up email within the next 48 hours with all of those resources. So please do not forget to complete that, to head over to Brian's website and download that book guide. And Sydney, I saw your question about the survey. I will take care of that now. So thank you all for your time and engagement today. Thank you.